welcome back, man. How you doing?
Oh, good, good. Work. Never ends, huh?
Yeah, I sorry you had to miss a couple today, man. Calling events, it always happens, man. But
Yeah.
we'll make up for it with we got a treat for you guys tonight, man. But before I get into who the guest is, I always like to bring you. Actually, this is not useless facts tonight. This is very
All right.
useful facts. I got some useful stuff for you, Dame. So,
Excellent.
we have a soft spot for drummers, right? We've had a few,
Yeah.
Yogi, Joey, the list goes on, of people that have been near to our
Yeah.
hearts.
Yeah.
So I started digging into some drumming facts, Dane, about the
All
actual
right.
technique
Here we
of
go.
being an artist. Did you know that drums, actually the sound of someone hitting a snare or a cymbal, triggers your mind to start thumping your foot? It's like, I hear drum, tap my foot. It's a thing inside your mind. I didn't know that. There's also the hardest type, at least I'm told by digging into facts, the hardest type of style to play is jazz. What I've been told, but I've researched. I can agree. Their brains are more symmetrical. Dane, that's why I'm so put together, because the drummer, their brains are symmetrical, right?
I
And
no
yeah,
comment on that one. We'll leave
let
that
that
one
one
alone.
go.
That was a low hanging fruit. I didn't want to
Yeah.
take it.
And they also are born with a higher rate of fine motor skills. That is something I think we
Yeah,
can all agree on.
definitely.
Technique, rim shots, all the things they do, man. So, and speaking of just amazing talent and technique, man, there's a guy we've been following for a very long time, from Sonic Flood to stuff with Kurt and Pacific, and now taking over the reins for Mr. Scott's Tap. We've got a gentleman, Dango Cellan, coming on the show.
Yeah.
So I want to get right down to it and bring on this icon. Dango, how you doing, man?
Good, man. I'm doing great. How are you guys this evening?
Amazing.
Excellent. We're doing great.
Man, we're
Thanks
excited
for having me.
Yeah, man. Congrats on the wedding and all the good things going on in your life, man. Congrats to you, So
yeah, definitely.
I am. I'm super thankful. The last month I've gotten married. I bought a second house, and moved into it. And I have 4 stepkids now. So in the last month, I've significantly grown in my family size, which is awesome, which is the reason I had to get a bigger house, and then still been able to keep working and be on the road and out with Scott's Tap this weekend and my normal guys I tour with. But yeah, it's just been a crazy summer with moving and getting married both at the same time.
I love it, man. Did you have to play your own wedding gig? Did you get that night off?
We actually debated, and I was like, babe, do you want music? She's like, I don't know. And I said, well, it's Nashville. All my friends are pro musicians, but it's going to be hard to get anybody available on a Saturday because everybody's gigging or on tour, and it's the middle of summer. So we just actually kept it small. And I had one buddy from my church who was a professional piano player, and he played some, instrumental stuff, but we didn't have any singing or anything kind of crazy. No drums.
Gotcha, man.
Nice. That's great. Nice and intimate. Those are usually the best ones.
He got the night off, man. That's awesome. Well, man, there's some questions, Dango, over the years we've kind of cultivated. I'm going to go with the first one, man. I'll get right to it. Obviously, and it's a thing, man. The Dango Empire, it fits perfect, man.
Yeah.
The bands and what you've cultivated before, what you're known from that, even before going back pre-Sonic Flood and Pacific. I'm sure there's side gigs along the way as well. Take me back, man. How old were you when you first started playing in your life?
I was in middle school and I really started drumming, started playing in church as a pastor's kid. And that was kind of my early exposure to playing with other musicians. And I learned a lot in that, and then started studying kind of privately in high school, taking lessons. I was in Madison, Wisconsin, got to the end of high school, and I was like, my dream was to play sports. I played baseball and basketball and cross country. And my junior year, I'd thrown a no-hitter as a pitcher and probably like a couple shutouts that year. And so that was really my dream, and had a bone disease they found my senior year, right at the start of the year.
Wow.
And so I had to have a major knee transplant. So I had a cadaver's knee put into my knee, and they said, you'll never play sports again. And I was like, well, this is my dream. This is what I want to do. So at that point, I decided to transition. I could still play drums. So I moved to Nashville. I went to Belmont University at a music school there. And I'm sure it was for the best, because realistically, I mean, I was just this little guy from Wisconsin. I couldn't have played sports in the real world, but in my mind, small town kid with big dreams, like I really wanted to be an athlete. And so got to Nashville and I studied there, got my degree in music. And then shortly after that, I moved to Seattle to join Amber Pacific. I flew out and auditioned. I was 23 and I packed up all my stuff and I moved from Nashville all the way to Seattle, Washington by myself. Didn't know anybody there. So that was a huge move for me. as an early 20-year-old. And we started playing on the Warped Tour. We signed a record deal the first year I was there. We did several years on the Warped Tour, and we put out 4 albums as a band, but 3 really in that first decade of touring. And then after that, it started to slow down, and I just thought, well, Nashville's what I know. That's where my friends are, a lot of them. And so decided to move back to Nashville and give it a go, trying to be a hired gun. And so moving back has been really good. And I've been back now for 11 years in Nashville. So really most of my adult life has been Nashville and Seattle. But since being back, I've played a lot of rock, a lot of country, a lot of worship stuff. Yeah. So getting back over those years, my first gig was a Christian rap guy named Manifest. Great dude. And then from him, I went to Super Chick, and that led to me playing for Fireflight. And I played for Red. That was one of the bigger names I played for in there as well. And because of the Red gig, that sort of was part of leading to me getting the gig with Scott. But I've been with Scott now for almost 9 years. And when that came about, I was touring with Fireflight, and they called and needed a guy right away. And people always ask, how do you get on gigs? And it's so much of who you know. It's such a crazy thing, because I was doing a country gig in Nashville with the bass player from Scott, Sammy, who's one of my dear friends now. And I just asked what he did outside of that gig. And he's like, well, I used to be in Everclear, and I play for this artist Tiffany from the 80s, but then I also play for Scott Stapp. And I was just like, man, if you ever need a drummer, call me for any of that. And 6 months later, we only played together once, and he ended up calling me. And so, and that was in 2015. And I started that year, and I've been with Scott ever since. And, with any artist, you have times you're on the road, you're off the road, artists making records, artists take a break, artists have babies, all this kind of stuff. And so throughout the last 9 years, I've also done a ton of country stuff. I'm not as big a names as Scott, but I've still done a lot of really cool country stuff and some other rock stuff, and just tried to keep working. And so that same year I started playing with Sonic Flood, 2016, actually. So I wasn't original with them at all, but they were like a band I grew up knowing all their stuff. And so that was to become a member of that and to play all those classic songs has been awesome, because those dudes are great. And we might only do a handful of shows a year now, but it's still, every time we do, it's just
iconic.
Like, the coolest guys. So that's been a neat one too. And like this year, I was trying to think, I filled in with David Cook. He was an American Idol guy I filled in with this year. And last year I filled in with a country guy, Mark Wills, who was a pretty big 90s and early 2000s guy, super class act, filling in for one of my buddies on drums. And another country guy, William Michael Morgan's had a hit. So a lot of like those level of country artists.
Diverse,
and I just get chances to fill in for buddies, and I love it, because I'm all about learning stuff, learning quick, sometimes jumping on a gig with no rehearsal, learning to write charts, learning to read charts quickly. And then, so that's been a lot of the touring stuff, but the whole time I've also been teaching, and that kind of comes and goes, but I'll teach, like right now I'm out every weekend. So Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday I teach, and then I leave either Thursday and Friday and hit the road. But I always have my students scheduled so that I can keep them. And I don't have a ton, but I probably always have about 10 a week. And that's what I try to maintain, because it's like a part-time job that keeps income when I'm home. And now I'm trying to juggle with the family, that if I'm home, I'm trying to not work too much. But I do a ton of gigs in town on Broadway, which is like our honky tonk bars. And so, and I mean, people don't get that till you visit Nashville, but it's like, there's 100 bars down there with live music, and you could go any time of day or night and there's a band playing. And so you have to be connected, and you got to know like 500 country songs. It's a lot. But once I got into it and started building those relationships, learning the stuff, that's great too, because on any given week home, I could play 2, 3, 4 gigs in town, teach some lessons, and then still be on the road on the weekend.
Wow.
Cool. Yeah. And
always moving, man. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I just try to tell people, if you're getting into this line of work now, it's not like it used to be, and you really have to diversify, and you have to really multi-brand yourself. Like, you can't be great at everything, but you try to be good at different things, and you can't just have one stream of income. So if you're a touring guy, something like the pandemic hits, you can't do anything. And that happened to a lot of us. And so then I kept teaching, but I also built had a studio built. I didn't physically build it, but I invested in a house right at the start of the pandemic, and totally did out the garage, sound treatment, the whole deal, electric, flooring, sound panels, everything, not just sound panels, in the walls, in the ceiling, so I can track at 2 a.m. And so I I record for people. So this week when I was home 3 days, I tracked for an artist in Australia. I tracked for an artist in Nashville, both remote from my place. And then I went and did a session in town, and I taught lessons Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So all 3 days, I kind of worked normal hours, and I was like home for dinner 2 of the nights, which was pretty impressive. But this week I didn't do any gigs in town. So next week I'm home. I might pick up 3 or 4 gigs in town. It just depends. But for example, we play this weekend. We flew into Boston. We're playing right next to Cape Cod tomorrow. So it's beautiful.
Wow.
But it's kind of a weird flight and drive. So Sunday, I'll get up early. We'll fly home. Most guys, if you fly and travel, they would often think, all right, like that's a work day, I'm done. I get home, I've got a gig from 6 to 9 on Sunday. So I'll fly in after traveling all day. I'll go downtown and I'll work because I'm like, hey, if somebody calls me and I can do it, I'm going to do it because I'm trying to provide for family. So that's the long, very long version of my life is a hustle. But I'm also like super thankful because I'm making a living playing drums, and that's hard to do.
No, man, I think that's what we want to hear too. And it's neat to see, like, and I get it. We love it. We think about the icon, and when I told you, man, I'm not just saying that. I really mean it when I say I've watched you for a long time. It's good to see that there is a path that you take, though, right? Like it's good that you're great. Your technique is flawless, and endorsements and all that kind of stuff, but you also work at it. It's just like those people that are athletes that we have on the show, and maybe those kids that want to be a doctor or a lawyer. You have to work at your craft, just like what you're doing. It's not just you walk up and play and that's it. You have to connect and continue to rehearse and teach and stay in your craft. That's awesome, man. Dane, before you take 2, you said something, man, because you said kind of playing in church and all that. I'll never forget, man, when I learned to play, I was about 12. Everybody has, their album that they played the heck out of, right? I would play this nonstop. There's a DC Talk, here you go, live album, Welcome to the Freak Show, that 96. You know what I'm talking about? And Will Denton was my first drummer. You know what I'm saying? I played
inside and out. I know that, right?
You know what I'm saying? So what's the album you cut your teeth to, man? Like learn to play. Do you have one like that, or?
What's crazy is I really don't, because I didn't grow up playing albums like everybody else, and I don't know why, because that was my second CD, and I'm a huge DC Talk fan. If they ever called me, I don't care what I'm doing, I would drop everything and do it. But like that's when I could really play a lot too. I guess in high school, Third Eye Blind's first record was a really big one for me. And then I started getting punk rock then. And so MXPX, slowly going the way of the Buffalo, and Life in General. Those are like 2 of my favorite records ever. So those would be, but mostly like I played so much worship that even though I wasn't playing the albums, like that's what I was playing all the time. So early on, Delirious, Sonic Flood, that kind of stuff, I knew all those songs. And that's, I mean, as odd as it sounds, that's what I played more than anything, because I was playing 3 or 4 or 5 times a week in church. So I really cut my teeth on worship stuff, which is, I mean, a huge part of why I still do it. It's so important to me now.
That's great, man. Talented. Go ahead, Dane.
Oh, yeah. And with all the people you've played with, all the great artists and all the songs you've played, the gigs you've done in Nashville, and I mean, all around the country, is there an event or a gig that you can kind of tell us that sticks out kind of in the forefront of your mind that you never get tired of telling about because it was so great for you?
Man, that's a great question, because everybody's got different, musicians have such different stories, and sometimes it's the crowd or the location. Like my first gigs with Scott Stapp were in South Africa, and it was unbelievable because we were on stage, and I'll never forget, it was like a safari next to us almost, because there was giraffes and rhinoceros and stuff that you're like, we would never see this in the US. So that was mind blowing. But when I also think back, like my dream was to play on the Warped Tour, and I was a punk rock kid. And so I really loved that stuff when I got into it. And so I got to sit in with NoFX several times, and I got to sit in with MXPX several times, and they were like my 2 favorite punk bands. So actually this last month, the guitar player in my punk band, Amber Pacific, sent me a video that I didn't know we had, because this was before cell phones. But it was me sitting in playing a song with NoFX at the Gorge in Seattle, which is like one of the big, the Watershed Country Fest is there, and all these massive events happen there because the Gorge is a big like cavern right there. Stage is right next to it. And I was playing main stage with NoFX, and that video clip, I just thought, man, I'm probably like 26 or 27, and that's still one of the coolest moments I remember as a kid. Like I'm playing with my heroes, one of their songs in front of
that's
several thousand people. So that's probably one that I think back and like, that was pretty life-changing.
I love that. I've
Wow.
been through there, man. We spent a summer there. My dad, my grandpa was up there, so I've been to the gore. It's cool, man. It's a cool spot. We've had some artists, and Dan from Red we had him on the other day, and everybody has like a different, like you said, approach. Some people have told us. He said there was an event. I think it was when he was with Red. We had Mikey from Islander said he had a show one time. They first began. It was like 25 people, and they brought him on stage with them. That was the show. It's like every artist has a different. This is my memory, right? So it's cool to see yours, man. And that's when I told Dana, I said, man, that's what got me into listening to you, because I still, with Amber Pacific, man, and it's like this. You see the evolution too when you guys play with them. When you hit that album in 2014, it's like, okay, they're kind of getting older, maturing, they're becoming adults, and you hear the content changes. And my daughter's like, Dad, why are all the songs like so kind of like, I was like, what were you looking for? I was like, you looking for the word emo? Yeah, it's like that time frame, So I played it for her. I was like, this is what we grew up with, I told her. It's funny. So anyway, but influence Dango, when you're thinking about it, man, because you have a plethora of people that you influence, your empire. I keep going back to that. But I mean, there is a thing when you're thinking about musical influences on you, stylistically playing, patterns, even brands, even just technique, all that. Is there maybe one or two drummers that still come to your mind that have been your muses, if you will?
So yes, and I love that you asked that, because even though I've come from different styles and everybody has their influences, and my favorite guy that I've not even tried to emulate, but that I love, that I've gotten to watch, is Josh Freese. And for people who don't know him, I mean, everybody's going to know him now because he just joined the Foo Fighters. But back in the day, I saw him on the Warped Tour with the Vandals. He would do a drum solo every day. And I knew who he was before that because I used to read the drum magazines. He's the reason I wanted to play DW drums and Paiste cymbals, because of this guy. Him and Abe Jr., that play for Paul McCartney, they both are DW Paiste guys. But anyways, I've met him several times at NAMM, and this dude would play like, he'd play on like an Avril Lavigne record and a Kelly Clarkson, and he played brushes on Michael Bublé's big hits. And he's toured with Sting in the last 5 years. He's toured with Sting several times, and he's part of Devo, and he got famous playing for Nine Inch Nails. And now he's in the Foo Fighters. And this dude is the guy that can literally play anything. Like, it's just unbelievable. And not that I play anything like him, but it's like, he's one of those guys that go, man, if I could just be like that, like I want to be so well-rounded that I could get called for anything. And then the Foo Fighters, like I'm a huge Dave Grohl fan. I'm a huge Taylor Hawkins fan. And so to think this is the guy that they called once Taylor passed away, like he's definitely the guy that I look to and say, that's my icon. That's my hero as far as well-rounded.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then if you go into the punk rock stuff, Yuri from MXPX, now a friend, huge. I'm a huge look up to him. Smelly from NoFX, Jordan from Strung Out, Brandon from Rise Against, like dudes that I grew up listening to play the I got super into that stuff, and that's why I was really big on putting that stuff on the Amber Pacific records, even though we were a little too late in the game for the fast beat. We still have it because I was so adamant on having that. So that was influential. But then you get into all these other, Vinny Colaiuta might be, in my opinion, the best drummer in the world as far as play anything well-rounded. And just like you're talking about with jazz, these jazz guys and Latin guys, you can learn so much. And I study it and I practice it and I work on it with my students and I make them learn jazz stuff. And I practice jazz because my drum teacher in college was Chester Thompson, and he's a legendary guy because he was in Genesis 30 years, but he's also on Frank Zappa records. He was in Weather Report. So he's a big jazz head. And he's like, you're a rock guy. I've got to change you. And so, early on I was like, nope, I'm punk rock. I'm not playing that crap. And after 4 years of college of doing all this jazz and Latin, I was like, wow, these guys are serious. I see what he's talking about. And I still suck at it. But I mean, I kid you not, I do practice jazz and Latin stuff. So I try to take influence from all kinds of guys. And now young people are so good. I mean, so many of my students, and you see virtuosos online and you just see kids who can shred circles around you. And it's discouraging at times, but then I think, I didn't have YouTube available. I only had what I could see, what I could learn. I was in a small town. We didn't have the internet even. So to me, my goal is always like, be the best you can be, because you can only be yourself. And people hire you because they can get along with you and because you can work with them. You don't have to be the best drummer ever. I'm clearly not the best or even great, but I just try to be good at what I do and hope that people keep hiring me and keep calling me back. So again, answer, but that's the
No, I love it,
that's my
man.
influence.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear. But there is a thing with technique, man. And I'm telling you, because Jason from Shadows Fall said Vinny as well. You both have said that. It's like that's just the thing, right? The muse and the style. There is definitely. It's not just. With all due respect, yeah, definitely getting like watching you get along with people, but there's going to be times when maybe style is a bigger factor. I'm trying to figure out how I want to say this. It's important. Style. Can't help me. Like we'll take an example of like a pitcher. You're going to have someone that throws a curveball for certain situations, and someone's going to throw a fastball. There's specific fits and styles of why I think people get called up and makes better music. Anyway, so, but yeah, then they know, so I've talked about this in length and detail. But hey, I talk about rim shots and when you're using toms and what double rides and all these things. He's like, just goes over his head. Like, trust me, dude, it's a thing, right? So, but no, again, go ahead, man, with four before
Well, I was going to say,
out.
well, I was going to say, even with, like you said, all the virtuosos that come out because of now the influence from the internet, you can go in and, pattern your style. Okay, I want to play this type of music, so I'm going to go watch these drummers. With you, it sounds like you've learned it and you've studied your craft through different genres of music. I think that's probably what other people see, that, hey, he's not just this kind of drummer. He doesn't just like this kind of music or these two styles. He can play so many different things because he's so studied. Even if you say that, you're not the best drummer, which, that's debatable, but you do so many things well that it brings to mind that whole thing where they say the jack of all trades, the master of none is still better than the master of just one. So that's what I think of whenever you were saying that, is like, you're a jack of all trades, and people will trade that for just somebody who plays something great. You play everything very well. So keep doing what you're doing. We love hearing it. And I've listened to your music since Josh introduced me to it. And I love it. I think you're doing a great thing. Yeah. So keep doing what you're doing. And that kind of leads me to, what's next with all the things that you do with touring, all the bands that you do, the gigs when you come home, and all the things that you do with your students. What do you see on the horizon for this next, 3 to 6 months, maybe rounding out the year for you, being that you have all these things on your plate, plus you're a newlywed?
Yeah. And honestly, when you say what's next on your plate, like, I definitely am trying to refocus my energy and mind to say, okay, I have a family now. And I was married 10 years, went through a divorce. That's 5 years ago. So starting over, I've really got to go, okay, this woman and these kids are priority to me. And I know God brought them into my life, and I feel strongly about that. So just knowing they're going to be a priority, but also I have to work and provide. And that's my goal. And they're really supportive. And so that's been great so far. But like, it's been weird to leave for weekends and tell the little guys and my 8 and 10-year-old now, I'm like, well, I'm flying in the morning. Like, what? Where are you going? And it's the weekend, buddy. This is what we did last week and the week before, And so trying to think about that is just a new adjustment, because I haven't had kids previously, and now it's like I have these kids at different stages. So that's a big thing that I'm trying to say is, going to be my focus this year. But also work wise, I have a couple more weeks, and then I'm leaving on the road with Kurt. And Kurt is a newer rock artist, Kurt Dimer.
He's
and
cool.
a lot of people haven't heard of him yet. Great dude. And I got pulled into that through our tour manager with Scott. He tour manages both. So he brought me in on a tour. And I was like, who is this guy? And he said, well, Phil X from Bon Jovi is in the band, so you might want to come fill in. We need a guy in 2 days. It was one of those where I just jumped into it, learned the stuff really fast. And so it became a great experience. And then you start touring with guys, and you make friends with the artists and with the other guys. So I'm now going on a couple years on that gig. And we've got a fall tour that's with Buck Cherry and Skid Row. And it's like 30 dates in October. So I'm going to be slammed all of October, and then we're going out with Mushroom Head. So I basically have all of September and all of October on the road, which is going to be great work-wise, tough on the family life, but also, it'll be a good thing financially that I'm working so much. But we usually only have 1 or 2 long tours a year, and that's really long to be gone. Like, it's 2 months, and I think I have 4 days home in between. So I don't recommend that to married guys. I'm like, if you're 25, that's the kind of thing you do. But so I have that, and then a few Scott dates after that at the end of the year, but we'll see. There's nothing else the rest of the year. And honestly, if I was home after that, I wouldn't be disappointed, because I used to want to be on the road all the time. And obviously once you factor family, you're like, well, I'm already gone enough as it is. So try to be home and be intentional, and then see what next year brings. I've just got to a place, I used to stress it, but I don't worry about the down season. Christmas comes every year. The road slows down. Nobody tours. A lot of people don't record. Lessons even slow down, but I can keep playing Broadway. For some reason, Broadway never slows down, I feel like, and that's, the downtown gigs. And I have to trust this is where God has me. And
Yeah.
I've done it enough years now. It was about 6 years ago where I said, I'm not going to do anything but music. And that's what I've been able to stick to. So as long as I keep all those plates spinning, no matter what season we hit, usually, even during the pandemic, by the grace of God, I was really fortunate to get through teaching and recording. So yeah, we can't, we don't know what's coming. Yes, we could have another shutdown or whatever, but I'm going to do everything in my power, keep working, keep pushing hard. And ultimately I want to provide for a family so that my wife doesn't have to work outside the home, because she's a single mom for 8 years working full time to support these kids after her divorce. And so I'm just like, man, I don't want her working all the time outside the house. I want her to be a mom. And so for that reason, I don't want to kill myself, but I'm not afraid to work hard. So
I love that. And then no, I'm telling you, man, I love it that we're breaking down, because the things that you're saying, man, there's a couple points I feel like there's a type of, like, it's in your blood, right? You said this, and Dane, you remember this. Kyle from Bad Wolves kind of said this too. It's like, hey, you gotta prepare yourself for the long haul. Being a rock star is great, but then when you leave the stage after those 90 minutes or whatnot at night, like, you have life to deal with, right? So it's fascinating to see how you've approached this from a standpoint of, I keep going back to it, the same way we tell our kids they need to get a degree, or someone that wants to be like an athlete, doctor, lawyer. I keep going back to that. You're putting in the work, man. Like, as an artist, you're putting in the work. People need to see that. Like, hey, it's awesome to see you chasing your dream, but I love that you're showing the story of this is how you maintain being a top deck artist. I love to hear that. That's crazy. Yeah. So
well,
yeah, man. I love the role model side of it too. It's interesting. We talked about this a little bit too. You spoke about some of the 80s a little bit when you're talking about, even Bon Jovi, great guy, but there's a paradigm shift too. And some of these artists I've seen take the 80s, it's all decadence, right? Everything was just boisterous to the max, excess everything, and really not living maybe the most productive lifestyle. And now you're seeing this shift of all these artists that are like, it's okay to not go to the extreme and still rock out. You know what I'm saying? So it's good to see that role model side of you as well. That just fascinates me no way, man. So I appreciate that,
Man, and I should really mention that what's so cool about working with Scott, one of the many things is, besides that he's an icon with these huge hits, it's like his life story, for all the hate he's gotten. People admire so much a guy who gets up and goes through addiction like he has. And so, I've been with him between 8 and 9 years now, and we all signed a contract, no drugs, no alcohol on the bus. Everybody's great with that. And it's cool. Just, he's one of those dudes that's lived it as a family guy, to watch him come through addiction the way he has, and to maintain, and to go to his meetings and all that. Like, it's so inspiring, because you talk to people and hear their journeys and just what they come through. And you realize, man, everybody's either going through stuff or has been through stuff at some point. It doesn't matter who you are. And it really shapes who you are in the future. And so that's really cool to see as we talk to people at shows. All these people that come to Scott shows are like, these people that have been Creed fans for 20 years, so many of them are recovering addicts or recovered addicts, or somewhere in their journey, just like, man, Scott's the dude that inspired me to get clean. So to be a part of that is really powerful too. So I love that when I think of role models, because he was as big as it got in his era. Like, there was nobody bigger than Creed at that time. Right. But he's a normal dude, and he's a dad, and he's a baseball coach for his son, and like all this stuff. So it's inspiring for sure.
That's cool.
If a guy at that level can do it, I want to be a good dad and also play music full time and also pay the bills. Like, that's a lot to ask, but that's what I want to do.
But you're doing it, man. So I'm gonna, Dane. It's tugging at my heart, man. All the feels. So I need a little bit of let's go lighthearted for a second, okay? So Dango, there's a part I told you about. It's all good, man. But there's a part I told you about that I said I'm gonna tell you, but not tell you about. So we love our fans, dude. There's a segment that we transition to called Rapid Fire. Every single episode, we make it a priority to do this. Dane and I bet on this. Dane, you got your picks? You ready?
Let me get set here. Yeah, I'm ready.
So Dango, the winner gets lunch provided by loser. I'm a few ahead. I'm ahead by about 100. I do a little research on our guests, and these are things, man. You got to imagine anything's possible. Past or present, time is not a factor, reality is not a factor, but you got to pick up one of these two based off of what we think you're going to pick. We bet on the outcome. Okay. So you ready?
I don't even know what to say, but okay.
All right. So first one, man. So imagine you show up to a gig. Kind of a side note to the story where, let's say your gear disappears and like it's just gone. All you have is your bass and your snare, but you have no sticks. Like all sticks have been gone. They're just evaporated from the planet. So you have two items in your room that you can play this gig with. A turkey leg. Stay with me. Or B, a Slim Jim. You got turkey legs or Slim Jims. You got to get through this gig and just wing it and make it seem like it's cool. Which one are you going with?
I'm going Slim Jim.
Dang it, Dane. I didn't have that one. I had turkey leg all day, man. Did you have Slim Jim, Dane?
Oh, yeah. It mimics the... yeah, you can
That's
mimic
messed up. Okay, all right. Well, Dane, you're ahead of me by one. I get
Slap
it. Okay.
Slapping it around. Oh, yeah.
Technique, man. It's much lighter. It makes sense.
I see it, man. I was just thinking, man. I see
You were
kind of
thinking
animal out there.
caveman. Come on.
I was, man. Let's go. Next one, man. So you have a lot of sponsors and you work with a lot of cool sponsors, but two iconic companies call you up and say they'd like you to be their next sponsor as long as you get their tattoo forehead. You have to get their logo tattooed on your forehead. Kind of a Post Malone thing. These two got to get it right here. Coca-Cola or Pepsi will sponsor you. Got to get the logo on your forehead. Which one are you going with?
I mean, this isn't even close. This is definitely Coke.
Dane, I'm 0 for 2, man. Did you get that one too, Dane?
Oh, yeah.
Are you kidding?
I'm serious, dude.
Brand in the world,
I love Pepsi. I love Pepsi. Dang it.
I am like, I actually drink Diet Coke. I prefer regular, but I drink Diet. But every restaurant, I'm like Coke or Pepsi. And if they say Pepsi, I'm like, I'll have water or iced tea. I will not drink a Diet Pepsi.
Gotcha.
I almost got a glass Coke tattooed in my sleeve. I kind of wish I would have, honestly.
Hey, there you go. That's cool. So
go.
next
just
one.
Just move it up from there to about here.
Yeah, there you
Perfect.
go. So next one, especially shout out to the kiddos. You've got some youngsters around the house. So these two cartoon companies call you up and they want you to make their intro a metal version. They want you to transition it, and these two iconic franchises, they want you to come, like sometimes they have Pop Goes Punk and those type of things, right? So imagine Cartoon Goes Punk, if you will. So you got to redo the theme song for A, Coco Melon, which I'm sure you know about that, having kids in the house, or B, redo the soundtrack for Dora the Explorer, make it punk or rock. Coco Melon, Dora the Explorer, which one are you going with?
Dude, I have been a stepdad for 3 weeks, and I don't know the song from either of those. I kid you not.
Okay.
I don't even know the first thing you said. I don't even know what cartoon that is.
Dude, it's a big kid thing right now. My kids are walking around the house playing it. Coco, you'll hear about it eventually, I promise you, man. So I'm going to give you a free pass on that one. Dane, what'd you have on that?
I'm sorry. I really don't know either.
It's okay. That's okay.
I had the Coco Melon on that one. But...
I got you. Okay. So two more on these, Dango. So, very cool way of even like speaking. Your voice is real smooth and chill. Very, very calm presence. Two documentary companies call you up and they want you to do the voiceover for one of these two nature documentaries. And you get to pick one. Okay. So you can either go with A, you can be the next penguin documentary, you're the voiceover, or you can be the next voiceover for an episode about dung beetles. Penguins, dung beetles, which one are you going with?
Definitely going with penguins.
I'm gonna drop out right now. I am 0 for 4 right now, baby.
Hey.
Dang it, Dane. I don't even want to ask the last one.
Hey, this is great for me. I got a lot of ground to make up.
Man, whatever.
I need these. I need them.
Last one. Last rapid question. So for a day, remember, time doesn't exist. Reality can be bent. You get to put your brain inside the body of one of these two iconic drummers for a day. No shade of what you've done, obviously very legendary, but your two choices, you get to put your brain or your body inside the body of Neil Peart or Danny Carey for a day. Which one are you going with?
Definitely Neil Peart.
At least I got one right. Okay. All right. So I had to do myself there. No shade to Danny. Danny, did you have Danny? I know you probably did.
Oh, no, I had Neil.
Okay, Neil, got it. Okay. All right, man. Well, thank you for that rapid fire for destroying me, Dane. Man, I'll send you some ramens, Dane, or something. So thank you, Dango. I appreciate that, man. That was fun. Hope you enjoyed that. Dan, go ahead.
Hey, Dango, this last section here, we call it a open mic. We kind of open up the floor to our guests to maybe tell some of our younger listeners and viewers that look up to you and maybe aspire to be where you are today in their life. maybe pass on maybe a message to them, like a mantra you've carried or a philosophy that will kind of help them, that, you know, that have maybe even helped you through some tough times in your life, and that you kind of carry along with you, that you can maybe pass on to them?
Yeah.
Absolutely. This is probably one of my favorite things about being a teacher with students, is trying to encourage them, because music, like anything in life, is something you can learn and grow and be good at, but it's so much about people. People are far more important than any career, any job. People are what matters. So if you value people, you're going to go so much further in life. And when I think about music, my college professor, Chester, said, don't have a backup plan. If this is your dream, if this is your calling, if you believe God's designed you to do this, don't have a backup plan, because life is hard. This journey is very hard. For kids that are getting into music, I don't care if you're the best guitar player, drummer, in the world, on YouTube, whatever. This is a tough career, so you got to stick with it, because if you have a backup plan, you're always going to fall back on it when times get tough, when the slow season comes, when you get fired from that amazing gig you thought was going to carry you for 20 years and only carried you for 2, and then you got let go. And if you can always keep going, as that's your focus, is like, I need to do this because this is what I'm supposed to be doing, it'll get you through a lot of tough times. But also, that said, maybe one of the other pieces of advice, Lester Estelle is a Nashville drummer now in LA, but he's back and forth. He plays for Kelly Clarkson, and we're not best friends or anything, but I would definitely consider him like a good buddy. He's very cool to everybody, one of the most humble dudes ever. And he said, at any given day, I just remember anybody in town can play my gig. Now, Lester's one of those guys that can play rock, he can play gospel, he can play country, he can play Kelly Clarkson stuff, and he sells it. I mean, he's great at all of it. And the fact that he would say that was such a reminder to me of, I don't care how good you are, there's other people out there, and there's always somebody better. So if you can take this career, and this would apply to a lot of careers, but definitely music, it's not about being the best. And if you can be humble, you can keep working, because again, it goes back to working with people in any line of work. If you value people and you treat them well, you can keep working, because music is so much about relationships. If you're the greatest thing ever, nobody's really going to want to live with you, tour with you, be on the road with you, be in a crappy hotel with you, or a great hotel, or a bus, or a van, or a plane for 12 hours. I mean, there's just all these things you got to factor. And a kid growing up thinking, I'm just going to be the best, and then I'm going to become famous. It's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. And even if you do, you might be for 5 minutes, but you want to have a career of this thing, you really have to think about being humble and working with people. So
that's good.
Those are my 2 pieces of advice, because getting good, working with people, learning, I mean, in anything, you want to be professional. If you were a young drummer, let's say you're 20 and you just moved to Nashville. I go to coffee with guys all the time who just moved here. They're like, how did you make it? How did you get here? And I start telling them basic stuff, show up, be on time, learn the music, have pro gear. Like, that stuff's basic. But more importantly, can you gel with people? Can you hang? Can you not be too opinionated? Can you not share your negative views? Because I've done all this stuff over the years. I've learned, I've gotten fired from gigs, I've gotten hired on others, but so many things have happened because of how I treated people. And I constantly think I want to keep working. So that's my biggest advice, is be humble and just keep trying to work with people. You're never going to be the best, but be the best you can be. And that's what I say. Like, I'm not the best rock, best jazz, best worship drummer, but I try to play them all the best I can. And some people get what you do. Other people won't like it. It won't be for every gig, but you can't be the right guy or girl for every single gig out there. You just have to find where you fit in, and that's where you'll fit in, and that's where you'll be able to do it.
I make notes. I always tell Dan I make notes every time, and I've got pages of notes, man. And I'm just kind of write down thoughts of what you said, and I keep going back to kind of not having a backup plan. And it's good to see that you're when you made that leap of faith, man. I correlate it to, again, what you do to any profession. I keep kind of going back to that. We have a lot of athletes that we get a privilege to work with, and whatever that line is that you want to do, just kind of letting go and having the faith to do it, man. There's something so powerful about letting go of that and just chasing your dreams, man. And that's awesome. So I'm so glad it's worked out for you and you've been able to bless us. Music is healing. You said that too, man. Music is a very powerful thing. I would not want to live in a world without music. So I'm glad you're doing this and continuing to do so. And like you said, we talk about this too, Dango. So many of our athletes give lessons, just like what you're doing, giving back to the next generation. You're now helping to mold future generations of musicians and drummers. And Dana always say music and sports is in good hands with people like you. So thank you for making it even better than where you found it, man. That's just truly impressive, man. So thank you.
Man, thank you guys. I appreciate the encouragement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Dango, again, good luck on the gig, man. We'll be watching when you post stuff tomorrow. Rock on, man. I can't wait to see many more things of what you're
Yeah.
doing. We'll be continue to celebrate you and be a fan of you, man. So we'll definitely be in touch, man. Please make this the first of many. You're welcome back anytime as part of the alum, man. So please come back in the
Yeah,
future
definitely.
when maybe get some more time and maybe we can check in on you and the fam and see how things are going with the
Yeah,
dad
definitely.
life and have you back for episode 2. Okay. So.
All right. I love it. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it. I just feel honored that you asked me because I'm sure you have a lot of more legit pros than me. So thank
Oh,
you
no.
for including me in the mix.
No, man. Again, when I got the privilege to meet you, man, I think every artist has something different to bring to the table,
Yeah.
right? And I've interviewed local artists, we've interviewed local coaches. We make it a point, we make it a segment every month. We have a local artist and a local musician and a local athlete, and then we go nationwide and all that stuff. So it was definitely something that we wanted to do to have you on. So it's been
definitely.
our honor. So man, you take care. Hope you get some rest, and please let this be the first of many times that you come on.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
So.
All right. Thank you guys.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thank you,
Much
Dango.
love. And
God
we'll
bless.
be in touch. Okay. Thanks, man.
All right.
Have a good one.
God
Take
bless.
care.
Bye.
You too, man. So, Dan, I'm telling you, man, cooler than the legend, man. What'd you think of that guy? Wasn't he awesome?
Loved it. I mean, all the great things he said about, being humble and having no backup plan. Just go at it with everything you've got. I mean, with all heart, your mind, spirit. Go after what you want and just keep practicing, keep working. I mean, that's a great thing that transcends all things that you do, whether it's sports, business, or the entertainments like he does. I mean, it's just a great message. That's why I love hearing artists talk. It's something else.
It's crazy how I see this every time, and he is legit, man. Like his body of work. It's interesting when, which I think is there's no reason to question it. When a drummer is more famous a lot of times than a guitarist or a bass player in a band, they're doing something right. And I knew about him. I'm like, no way. When I messaged him and I got a response like, this is like Christmas in August, because he is powerfully known, man, and does a lot. I mean, making music for decades of just great stuff. Amber Pacific, when you talked about that, dude, that's been a band I've been jamming to I've been at some of those Warped Tours and I've seen them play. I didn't even realize at the time, like, oh man, I shown up and talked to him because I've seen him play before, so it's like, and then you put the 2 and 2 together later on, like, what a great band. So just a legend and still going strong, man. And then just everything he does, playing with giraffes in South Africa. What a cool story, dude. Like, you're sitting here high-fiving a giraffe and you're getting down and, in this festival. That's cool, man. So I love it, man. Well, just
the diverse type of music he plays. He can just virtually sit in with anybody and just,
that's cool.
Okay, let me study this for about a couple hours and then I'm ready to go. I mean, that's like he's being pretty humble, saying that he wasn't, he didn't consider himself great, but
he's great.
Listen to his stuff. You can't say anything after listening to it other than, man, that's a great artist.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we got to pick his brain.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and me, Dan, I can talk to Mannequin when I'm sitting here, just like my mind is blown, dude. Listen to this guy talk. Yeah. So that was a good one. Thank you, Dango. Please come back, man, for real. Good luck on your shows. And thanks for making that happen. He was so humble. And when we talked, I could tell he genuinely was grateful. And that's what makes my heart warm when someone as important as he is to me is excited to come on our show. So we're doing something right, man. I love it. So thank you for spreading that positive word. I noticed this tattoo is cool. He has one that says forgiven, and there's such a humble thing about it, man. Just trying to promote positivity, help people get through tough times in their life. And I just love the guy even more than I did before I came on. So that was cool. Well, tomorrow's a big day as well. Thank you, Dango. Sometime tomorrow, guys, we've got a Saturday bonus edition. We've got our buddy Joey Chicago stopping by from Pop Evil. So that's going to be a great day of music as well. I won't even get into next week. We've got a slew of big ones for you next week. So thank you, Dango, and prepping for Joey Chicago tomorrow. You guys get some rest. Thanks for staying late for the nightcap. Don't forget, as always, that we love you. And Dane,
thank you for listening.